Hi, God's Own Medicine PlayStation and Medic Maniac YouTube. So, there's been a big gap between Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen, which is an expansion of the original Dragon's Dogma, and it encompasses that and additional content that was put in the game, minus the licenses lost for equipment to do with the Japanese Berserk anime. There's a big gap between this and Dragon's Dogma 2. I was a huge fan of the original Dragon's Dogma, and I'll talk about that in a bit. And so I was very much looking forward to Dragon's Dogma 2, which I bought at launch. And I have opinions about Dragon's Dogma 2. I do. And my opinions about Dragon's Dogma 2 are all the more pronounced because of my love and affection for the original Dragon's Dogma, and subsequently the expansion added to the original, which became Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen. So I bought Dragon's Dogma after playing the original demo back on the Xbox 360, and I was alerted to the game because of the people behind the game. I read about it before I played the demo, and I read some of the people who were involved in the project, in the development, and I was very interested, extremely interested. I knew it would be good. I knew it would be a very good game right from the get-go, and I followed it with very keen interest. And yeah, I played the demo, and I created my original character in the demo, and I created my pawn in the demo, and I played the game when it came out. I bought it at launch and I played the game, and my characters carried over into the game that I'd made in the demo, and it had a level cap of 200. I loved the game so much that I capped out at 200 in the base game with my characters, my pawn and my arisen that I had made in the demo. The game was brilliant in terms of its combat. I remember it had a couple of patches, so this roll was not always like that. It was a little more floaty, and it was patched. The other things that I remember getting patched, I remember walking along pathways and roads and falling down them. You know, there were a couple of glitches, and they happened at specific points in the game, and things like that got patched. I think there might have been balancing, but I certainly know that balancing occurred, and I mean in terms of stats and stuff, that occurred with the expansion. But just talking about the base game, if we look at the maps, I'm just going to go out of Grand Seren, because the game has its limitations, but despite all its limitations, I fell in love with the game. Absolutely fell in love with the game. So you can see on the map that the game world is small, I remember Angry Joe doing a video about Dragon's Dogma review, and I remember him saying, "It's Skyrim big." No, it's not. It's not. It never was. Skyrim's an entity unto itself, with its size in terms of high fantasy RPG, because of all the dungeons and stuff. Dragon's Dogma is nowhere near Skyrim big. Nowhere near it. And there are certain places, like the Shadow Fort, for example, where you know that there was just going to be some more to the map. I mean, there was. And when I researched stuff, indeed there was going to be more to it. You would have been able to go to the Goblins place, and there was going to be a story to do with that, because there's a mission at the Shadow Fort where you have to fight some goblins, and there's an opportunity to kill the King Goblin, I believe. Got a crown on his head. Sometimes you have to jump out the window and chase him to kill him in the tunnel. I remember that. But yeah, you would have been able to go to the Goblins place, but obviously, the funding for it wasn't there. Whatever, there was limitations on what they could do with the game. And there were quite a lot of cuts made to it, in terms of what was originally planned and stuff. I know Lost Planet was like that as well. That was supposed to be bigger and and everything, and they had to change that. So Dragon's Dogma wasn't any different in that regard, and it had criticisms about dialogue with NPCs. I found actually that at different points in the game, if you went back to your original village and there were certain points in the game that would progress. You'd go into the next stage of the game type thing, and then if you go back and talk to people, you could get different lines of dialogue. And there were certain people in the village that I used to love going and talking to every now and again. Inez at the inn, and there's a lad who stands outside the church who gives you a quest to find a priest's Bible, and if you go back and talk to him, he's great to talk to. And there are lots of different dialogue bits that you can get. And for example, in Gran Turismo itself, in the capital, at the castle, there's a lot of intrigue and political sort of shenanigans, and you can sneak around and talk to people and stuff. And I used to do that a lot, and there's lots of people who you can go to and get different lines of dialogue and find interesting things about. There's also a heck of a lot of NPCs who've got generic one-line dialogue and stuff. So the game is quite mixed in that regard, but the combat is just so great. It's like nothing else of its time. In my opinion, this game was groundbreaking in what it allowed you to do. There are a lot of elements in it that remind me of very much of Monster Hunter, Capcom's other game. But Dragon's Dogma did things in a high fantasy setting, but you could climb all over the monsters. The amount of things that you could pick up, and that aspect of the game, and you could create lots and lots of things to use in the fight and throw things and all sorts. You can even throw enemies and stuff off cliffs or at other enemies, or there's so much that you can do in this game. And yeah, from creating my characters in the demo to capping out in the base game, and then when the Bitter Black DLC was added to the game, I bought the game again, because they released the DLC to download, and they also released a physical disc version, where the base game and the DLC were all on one disc, and I bought that one as well, which is Dark Arisen. And I have the original game on 360. I have the original game on PS3, which I picked up second-hand a bit ago, a year or two ago. It's really cheap, it was. And then I've got Dark Arisen on 360, and I've got Dark Arisen on PS3 as well, and obviously Dark Arisen on PS4, and I've got Dark Arisen on Switch, and I've got multiple profiles where I've made multiple characters, and I use a stat planner, which I'll show here. And after I've planned out my build with the stat planner, I think about, what the character's going to be and the personality and how they're going to look, and I'll research a name to go with that, to go with, what kind of era I think the name is from, and what kind of nationality and all that. And I'll pick out names that fit the character that I've made, so they'll have a meaning to them. And that's just things that I do, and I make a voice for them, and I make things that they like and dislike, and kind of how they are in personality traits and stuff. And I go the whole way, and I think about, how they'd interact with other pawns and other arisons and stuff, and yeah, it's really fun, because I love this game so much. So some photographs. This is the first photograph I took in the PS4 version of Dark Arisen, which I was very excited about when they announced it was coming out, because the servers got shut down on the Xbox 360. So I really missed it. So it was all the joy of creating characters and thinking of names and stat planners and everything else. So starting off with the first photograph, and then some of these, I've had on my hard drive for ages. They're not going anywhere because I love this game so much. I like to keep them. So we progressed through the main game and went into the bitter black, and my pawn is leveling up, doing the different vocations, and yeah, we end up where we go to the bitter black and we end up fighting the daemon. So just some photographs just from my absolute love of this game.